Do you have an overreactive dog, either on your walks or in your home when people come over or when people pass your house? Well, I'm here to say, you know, the best way to deal with that is not just to shut them down. What do I mean by that? Well, you know, I've been noticing a lot of videos on my feeds about trainers who teach and show their pet parents that when the dog becomes like over riled up, they use these methods to shut them down right now. And in reality, that is not the way to deal with this kind of behavior from your dog. Because most likely, your dog is actually afraid, worried, or in other circumstances, really excited. But I'm here to address the dogs that are the ones that are scared or worried. So these trainers that are like using methods to shut them down bothers me a lot because they're not addressing the underlying issue of the dog. So the way I would approach a dog that is worried or fearful of a dog, person, a loud motorcycle, wouldn't be to actually like expose them closely to those triggers. We would start at a distance where the dog can be under threshold, meaning, they can look at it without feeling overly worried about it. Now, you're right on the edge most of the time when you're training in this way. But what you're doing is helping them stay at a mental state where they're not in the red zone, but where they are in a orange zone or yellow zone, where they can look at the trigger and you can help them assess that particular trigger as being safe. And that's how we help the dog learn to react differently to that trigger. Now, the second part to that is not only helping them emotionally deal with that trigger, right, to assess it and deem it safe, nothing to worry about, but then we also teach them the behavior we want, the alternative behavior we want, which may be to either disengage or check in with us. Those are the two favorites that I use. What are your favorites? What are your favorite go-to like behaviors you prefer your dog to do instead of barking, screaming, lunging at the trigger? So when I see these other trainers showing in one video the dog that's over the top, because basically, you know what, they put them in that situation to make them react that way. And then, they show the dog compliant. I put that in quotes, compliant, because most likely the dog has shut down or realized, this person is going to continue to either choke me or zap me, so I will just freeze until he goes away, is what that dog is most likely doing. So for social media's sake, the way we train looks very boring. We're showing the dog that trigger from the distance where they can like look at it and maybe like you can see them breathing, you can see them staring, and then you get them to look away. It's like, good girl, good boy. And sometimes it'll be like walking away from it to give it more distance and then go back up to the edge of where they may start getting worried and then come back away from it. So all of that for social media purposes looks really boring. And I remember one trainer describing the way we train the dogs to become comfortable with our world and not be so triggered by those different stimuli that sometimes to the outside, it looks like they're watching paint dry. And that's the way the training should look like. Now, every once in a while, I've been in a situation where, I first meet the dog. I don't know the dog very well. I'm asking the pet parents what their triggers are, how close can they get before you see them getting riled up. And because the pet parents don't quite understand what they're looking for, sometimes they don't notice the dog like gearing up to start screaming. They don't see the smaller behaviors, the body language, So sometimes they miscalculate how far away we should be to start. And so, we just make adjustments for that. And then in the classes and in the sessions I do with my pet parents, we also talk about sometimes, this is real world we're living in and working in and practicing in. Sometimes we have to get out of Dodge, sometimes the dog has gone over and because we've gotten too close to a trigger, unbeknownst to them and us because they came out of nowhere. And so sometimes we have to teach the pet parents how to escape. And, that's an important skill to learn too. So that's what training with a positive reinforcement trainer looks like when you have a dog that's overreactive. All right. Thank you for joining me for my training for Tuesday. I hope you found this helpful, and I will see you next Tuesday.